Hello everyone and welcome to another incredible game from round 2 of this year's US Chess Championship. It is Fabiano Caruana versus Andy Woodward, and this clash is, at least to me, it's phenomenal for a couple of reasons. Fabi being, who he is absolutely incredible. He won the last 3 US Chess Championships. Very convincingly, he challenged Magnus Carlsen for the title in 2018. So he is, he's been in the top 10 or maybe even in the top 5, we could say, for the past 15 years. So, aside from Magnus, at some points in time, he is the strongest player in the world. And he's playing against Andy Woodward, who is only 15 years old, but already playing some incredible games and taking down some very, very strong players. Yes, in round 1, he lost to Levon Aronian, but just as I've mentioned a couple of weeks prior, in the FIDE Grand Swiss, he defeated Levon Aronian in round 9. So it's not just a fun matchup, but also the game itself is spectacular. You guys will love it. I do have some news before we check out the game, and it is from my official partner, Lotus Chess. Lotus Chess, we have some data, as we've been crunching the data for the past 3 months. The users who have been using Lotus Chess consistently over, let's say, 1 month, have increased their rating by 100 points. That is spectacular, and I'm very happy that that is the case, and I'm very happy that I can promote it and recommend it to you guys. So if you're hearing it for the first time, which I doubt it was created by the 2 German brothers, Raphael and Maxim. It tries to teach you how to play like a human. It teaches you how to sacrifice pawns in the opening, get great playable positions, and always go for the initiative. So it's a remarkable resource. Try it out. First link in the description below. And, why not grab that 100 rating points extra over the course of 1 month? So that being said, let's check out the game. Fabiano Caruana with white opens with pawn to c4. He opts for the English opening. Pawn to e5, we have knight to c3, knight to f6, and pawn to e3. We have knight to c6, so the 2 knights variation of the English, or rather the 3 knights. And here we have queen to b3, and this is very, very rare. Almost everyone plays knight to f3 or a3. Queen to b3, like I said, very rare, and although it was used at the absolute top level, not with great results. For example, Arjun lost to Nihal Sarin, Gukesh lost to David Navara. Magnus Carlsen did beat Ding Liren, if you remember that, maybe it was 2019 or something, the Gold Money Asian Rapid tournament or something. But yeah, overall, maybe 30 games in the database, and very, very few of them at the absolute top level. So this is what Fabi prepared with an hour and 30 minutes on the clock. So, good luck to Andy figuring this out. And Andy goes for bishop to c5. He spent some 8 minutes on this move, and obviously it's a move that Fabi has not prepared for, because Fabi plays pawn to g3, burning 20 minutes of his clock. So even though Fabi is the one who surprised Andy, he was not ready for this bishop to c5 move. And here already we have pawn to d6, and it is now as of move 5 that we have a completely new game. So what more could we ask for, from a US Chess Championship round 2 game? Pawn to a3. At some point you will move the queen. You want to play pawn to b4, pawn to b5. Castles kingside by Andy, and bishop to g2 by Fabi. We have bishop to f5, and now queen captures on b7. Fabi accepts the challenge, and what is the move that Andy prepared for Fabi? Well, of course, knight to d4. And this could easily fry your brain trying to calculate this. Of course, first move that comes to mind is queen captures on a8. And it's even the top move recommended by the engine, but there's a very particular reason why Fabi avoids it. Because if you play queen captures on a8, okay, knight to c2 check, king to d1, queen captures on a8, bishop captures on a8, and now knight captures on a1, there's really not all that much you can do here with white to put any pressure on black. For example, bishop c6, okay, you get the bishop out of harm's way, bishop to c2 check, king to e2, let's say knight b3. I mean, this is, if anything, black is playing this for the win. So, you're just not going to get any chances here. And so instead of doing this, Fabi actually goes into a worse position where he decides that he will have better chances of creating chances. He plays e captures on d4, and he accepts the challenge full on. We have e captures on d4, and now Fabi goes back, queen to f3. And why did Fabi do this? Well, not a lot you can do now, because now if you play queen captures on a8, the very simple queen e7 check, and you've blundered the queen. So that's out of the question now. On the other hand, you could go for knight to d5. Seems like, a perfectly reasonable move. Your knight is attacked on c3, but now after knight captures and bishop captures, rook b8, and whatever you do with the queen doesn't really matter, d3, and you're not surviving this. You're getting checkmated however you play this. If you, let's say, knight f3, queen e7 check, king to f1, queen to e2 check, king g1, and queen captures on f2 with a beautiful, beautiful checkmate. So yeah, that's obviously not happening. So after e captures on d4, queen back to f3 by Fabi, and now Andy goes for bishop to g4. This is, this is the only move that allows him to play for the win. Everything else is fine for Fabi. If you like rook e8 check, you're happy to go knight g to e2. There's no d3 as the bishop on f5 is hanging as well. So Andy goes for the absolute best, bishop to g4. Gains a tempo, gets the bishop out of harm's way, and now Fabi is in big trouble. Fabi plays queen to d3, d captures on c3, d captures, and now rook to e8 with check. Okay, Fabi has to play something, king to f1. Even though bishop to e3 might seem like a good idea, it's going to be very hard to actually defend after captures. Captures, let's say rook b8, you go after b2, b4, queen e7. This is just a terrible, terrible position for Fabi. So after rook to e8 check, king to f1, this also doesn't look that great, and especially now if the knight ever moves, you can just play bishop to e2 check. Yes, you give up the bishop and rook for the queen, but bishop and rook for a queen is, I think, a deal everyone takes. So knight d7, and Fabi goes for knight to f3. We have knight e5, knight captures, rook captures, again with ideas of bishop to e2 check, and there's no way around it. Fabi goes bishop to f4, and he basically forces it. But Andy does not go for bishop to e2 check. He instead goes for rook to e2, which is even worse, considering that now you're forcing Fabi to play queen captures on e2. Otherwise, rook captures on f2 just wins on the spot. So queen captures on e2, bishop captures, we have king captures, and now just rook to b8. Now Andy goes after the b2 pawn. Fabi plays pawn to b4, bishop to b6, and now bishop to c6. Okay, Fabi gains control over the e8 square, so rook to e8 will never be an option, but still. We have queen to e7, sorry, not queen to e7 with check. You could play it, but queen to f6 is what Andy goes for. He goes after the c3 pawn, and we have rook 8 to c1. Fabi defends, followed by rook to d8. So Andy figured out how he has to bring the queen into the game. He has to play pawn to d6, pawn to d5 to clear out the d6 square for the rook. Sorry about that. I think it's the mailman. Just give me a second. Sorry about that. I have to walk slowly because the camera follows me, but then if I walk too quickly, then the camera just locks out. So it's weird like that. But yeah, here the idea is you have to play d5 to get the rook into the game via the d6 square, and then you can maybe manage a rook e6 or something. But it's fairly far off from that. Rook h to e1 from Fabi, and now the question is how to continue here. Pawn to g5 definitely seems like the way to go, but for some reason Andy dislikes it. He goes queen to f5, and now pawn to h4 with pawn to h6 and bishop to e3. Bishop captures, and now king captures on e3, followed by queen to c8. Again, you could go for pawn to g5 maybe. Pawn to d5 here, well, yes, you will have to sacrifice a pawn to get the rook to d6, but after captures and rook to d6, it's still very hard to get that rook into the game. Pawn to f4, for example, rook g6, rook g1, let's say queen h3, king f3, you're defending everything, and black is better because it's an open board. The white king is on the run, but it's with perfect play, it's manageable. So here after king captures on e3, Andy goes back, queen to c8, and now we have king to f3. Finally, safety for Fabi. Queen to a6 going after the a3 pawn, but Fabi doesn't need it. Pawn to b5. We have queen captures on a3, bishop to d5, followed by king to f8. Now you can advance the df pawn. King to g2, pawn to g6, we have rook to c2, and now rook to e8 okay, Fabi allowed the rook to enter the game. Now we have a trade. Rook captures, king captures, and rook to e2 check, king to f8, and now rook to e3. With the rook on e3, the pawn on the dark square on c3 is defended. This is defended by itself. So is there any way for the black queen to make some progress here? Not likely. If both of them are happy with a draw, then it's going to be a draw. If one wants to really win and maybe over pushes, then the other gets a chance, or maybe they both get a chance. So it's sort of that kind of a position. We have pawn to h5, and we have rook to f3, going after the f7 pawn. So pawn to f5, and rook back to e3. Now Fabi can go after the g6 pawn. Pawn to a5, you have to capture en passant, as that is a pass pawn there. So captures, we have queen captures, and now rook to e6. Fabi goes after the g6 pawn. Queen to a4, and rook captures on g6. We have pawn to c6, chasing away the bishop. Bishop to f3, and now king to e7. Defending the pawn on d6, we have rook to g7 check. King to d8, and now rook to g5. Ready to gobble up all of the kingside pawns. Pawn to f4, trying to mess up the pawn structure. We have pawn to g4, captures, and now queen captures on c4, guarding the pawn on f4. h5, queen captures on c3, pawn to h6, and now the only move that saves Andy, and that is queen to h8. If pawn to h7 lands, then rook g8 is just winning, so you have to stop it. Queen to h8, and here Fabi played rook to h4, queen to h7, stopping pawn to h7, and bishop captures on c6. We have king to e7, bishop to f3, queen to g6 with check, king to h2. We have queen to c2, going after the f2 pawn. Rook captures on f4, queen captures on f2 with check, king h3, and queen to d2, attacking the rook, king to g4, and now you could play a lot of moves here like queen h2, queen a2, pawn to d5, you push the pawn. It's still a very, very equal position, and that's why Andy decides to force a draw. He plays rook captures on f4, king captures, and now just king to f7. And for those of you who are maybe new to chess, you're wondering, why did he do this? He's now down a piece, and Fabi has a passed pawn, but it's a light square bishop. The pawn queen's on a dark square, so there is never a possibility for this pawn to actually become a queen. All Andy needs to do is put the king on h8, and you will be unable to kick it away from the corner, as you have a light square bishop. So they both know it's a draw. Now it's only a matter of playing a few more moves, because that's how gentlemen play chess. We have king to f5, king to g8, king to g6, king to h8, and we have the best kind of draw, bishop to d5, a draw by stalemate. Sometimes, I prefer a draw by threefold repetition. Sometimes I prefer a draw by insufficient material, but stalemate will also do just fine. So yeah, very nicely done, and I've really enjoyed both of the games that Andy played. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite players from the US to watch, and yeah, we'll see what happens in round 3. Let me just quickly check the pairings for round 3, as I don't know them either. So Wesley faces Sam Shankland, Wander Ling faces Fabiano Caruana, Darius Šverc faces Abhimanyu Mishra, Hans Niemann faces Ray Robson, Andy Woodward, Grigori Oparin, Sam Sevian, Levon Aronyan. So, yeah, okay, many exciting matchups. But yeah, this was pretty intense, and although Fabi surprised him with queen b3 right out of the opening, Andy struck back with bishop to c5, and it was, complete madness straight out of the opening, from move 5 even. So yeah, brilliant stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I would like to thank Rokao, John Anderson, Ulrich Thini, Gerard St. Pierre, and The Word Weird for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.